Welcome to Infinity Reviews. Oh no! Oh my god! No, no way! Oh, it's Sabretooth! Oh, look at these fights! Alrighty guys, welcome back to another movie review. And this is going to be a non-spoiler review. And this is a non-spoiler review for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the third installment in the Sonic the Hedgehog film franchise. And the question is, does this live up to the hype? Is this as good as the original two movies? I would have to say this is the best one yet. It is the best one yet. If that's the storyline going on with Shadow, which I think there are a few problems with that storyline, but it's as enjoyable as ever. You love these characters. You love Sonic, Tails, Knuckles. You love that dynamic. And Shadow, Keanu Reeves as Shadow just adds, another element to that. Shadow is one of my favorite Sonic characters of all time. Just because I love the character. I think he's so badass and cool. And he was always one I gravitated towards as a kid, as my favorite Sonic character. Now, I will say, I don't think the Maria storyline, the one storyline I was looking forward to the most, I'm like, can they nail this? They did an okay job. It didn't feel like as impactful like it felt in other Sonic media in the past. But still, it showed us, the audience, why Shadow is doing what he's doing. It showed him like, hey, he wants vengeance on the world because they took the one person he cared about away from him. And, I do think Keanu Reeves did a really good job with that. Keanu being Shadow, now that I go back now and I think of Shadow, I'm going to go back to Keanu Reeves. I'm going to think of Keanu Reeves as Shadow, and that's what I'm going to gravitate towards now. I'm like, oh yeah, Shadow, I'm just going to imagine Keanu Reeves, because he was really, really good as Shadow. And, there are some things in that set up, maybe a solo project. I would love a solo project with Shadow. I'm just going to say that. Give us a solo Shadow movie. Like, that would be amazing. You could introduce characters like Rogue the Bat. They actually had some Easter eggs also in there of, like, the robot from Shadow's storyline. You can introduce Blaze. There's all these cool things with Shadow's storyline because, unlike Sonic, he has a very, very dark past, as we see in the movie, but he also is an alien. He is the supreme being. He's the best. He is better than everyone, and he's better than Sonic. He's better than it. I just think he's such a great character. There's so much more depth you can dive into with that character. So let me just give you the overall gist of the story. If you're not a Sonic fan, I'm gonna tell you a little gist. So the gist of this film is Sonic and his friends are recruited by Gunn to help stop a threat, and that threat is Shadow. And he teams up, of course, with Dr. Robotnik and Robotnik's grandfather. I think it's Gerald Robotnik. I think it is, and both played by Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, I'm gonna talk about him a little later. One of the best Jim Carrey performances, I think, in the Sonic films. And they have to stop Shadow. And, of course, it's going to have that classic trope like, oh, we're enemies at first, but then we have to become allies to stop Robotnik and save the world. So that's kind of like the gist of the overall film. Now, I'm not going to go into spoilers. I'm going to save like a little spoiler review probably for tomorrow, so we can dive more into spoilers. Because I can't talk a lot about this film because there's a lot of spoilers I really want to talk about. So let's just dive into our characters next. And, of course, we got to start with our first guy. Sonic the Hedgehog, played by Ben Schwartz. I actually thought Sonic wasn't my favorite in this movie. He wasn't my favorite. I do think the performance of Ben Schwartz is better in Sonic 2. There's a lot of jokes. And, I know this is a kid's movie. It's a kid's franchise, But I do think Sonic was a bit, more, jokey this time. And a lot of the jokes, in my opinion, did not land. That doesn't mean I didn't like the performance. I liked the performance of Sonic, Ben Schwartz, I think of Sonic the Hedgehog, I think of Ben Schwartz because he does such a great job with the voice, He can be very, very funny at times, but Ben Schwartz, he can also go into the very serious, There's a point in this film where something happens to one of Sonic's friends, and he kind of starts to go down a dark path, I think Ben Schwartz played that really, really well, this dark kind of Sonic who doesn't care about anything, that was a cool thing to see in the film. But overall, I thought Sonic was okay. Now we're going to go next on to Tails. Tails had nothing to do with this movie. He was just basically the sidekick, That's mostly how Tails is in all of Sonic Media. He's the sidekick to Sonic. He's like Sonic's super fan. He's always following Sonic around. And that's kind of what we got this time around. He's a computer whiz. He hacks his way towards guns facilities. That's his job. He's a hacker. He's a hacker. I thought it was okay. Okay. Then we move on to Knuckles. My favorite thing about Sonic 2 was Knuckles, because Knuckles is such a funny character. He's so funny, but he's also very, very serious and cool. I did not watch the Knuckles series. I just wasn't really interested in watching that show, just because, it felt like it was more about the humans than Knuckles. My favorite thing about the Sonic movies is that they, unlike the Michael Bay Transformers movies and those Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies, they focus on the CGI characters. It's the CGI characters don't help the humans, elevate the story. It's these characters, and I love that they were so prevalent in this movie too. And Knuckles is as funny as ever. I love this character. I think Sonic 2, he was great. He was probably equally as good here. I love the character of Knuckles. I love how him being so serious and not understanding humor makes him actually really funny. Idris Elba kills it again as this character. I love it. I want to see more Knuckles. My dream one day is to see Knuckles team up with the Chaotic. If you're a Sonic fan, you know who the Chaotic is. Because those are like his group, his like best friends. And I do love that in this movie also, that we kind of get the budding still relationship of Sonic and Knuckles. A big thing in the video games, and maybe in the comics, because there are Sonic comics out there, which, if you have never read Sonic comics, go out and read them. Whole thing in that comic is Knuckles and Sonic are always butting heads over the Master Emerald, over how to do things. It's kind of like I kind of think of like Batman and Superman, where Sonic's more like Superman, Knuckles is more like Batman. They're kind of like contradict each other. Have they different ways of doing things sometimes, and that's what I love about that. And I love that there's a moment in this film where they kind of had that confrontation, which kind of reminded me like, oh, this is like what I imagined playing the video games. Oh, when I was reading the comics, that's what I thought, and it was a moment that I really, really loved in the film. And then on to the next character. We're going to talk about Shadow. Shadow. I already talked about him a little. I loved him. I absolutely love Shadow. You see, Shadow is back here on the poster now. I'm putting that poster up. Shadow was so important to me because when they introduced him in Sonic 2, I'm like, oh my god, we aren't ready for Sonic 3. I'm finally going to get one of my favorite video game characters of all time in a movie. And, he delivered. Keanu Reeves, he was very, very much felt like a Keanu Reeves, But the thing is, like, it could have been where, like, oh, it's Shadow, but all I'm seeing is Keanu Reeves. I'm watching the movie and I'm seeing Shadow. I'm seeing his despair over Maria's death, which is not a spoiler. That is not a spoiler. I'm going to say this. Like, most of you watching this are going to be Sonic fans. That's maybe the one thing, I'll put a little spoiler up there, if you want. But everyone kind of knows that this little girl goes bye-bye. I'm not going to tell you how she dies, though. You got to go see the movie or wait for tomorrow for the spoiler review. But that sadness, that pain, that hatred, really, really, makes him different than Sonic. As as they say in the trailer, Sonic had friends, family. Shadow had no one. He only had was Maria and lost her. There's a very important moment in the film, which I thought, was very important, where, Shadow attacks someone of Sonic and hurts him pretty bad. Hurts this person pretty bad. And when Shadow realizes what he did, he's looking at Sonic and seeing like, am I no different than the people who took Maria from me? That was a moment I was like, oh wow, that's great. That is so great. Not from saying anything, you could just tell by his expression that he was making someone else feel the way he did. And, for a moment, he's like, I gotta make him like me. Maybe if Sonic understands, where I'm coming from, he will understand my pain. And, the thing is, Sonic almost went down that path. He almost went down that path. But, I think through the lessons that that Tom, has instilled in Sonic these last few movies has made him, different. I don't think if he had not gone to Donut Lord or Tom and had him as like a father figure, I don't think Sonic would have been able to hold back against Shadow after this person got really hurt. But I think the performance of Shadow was great. It was great. Great, 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 great. I loved it. Now, the next character, I think, the one person who steals this movie. Now, I'm a fan of Jim Carrey. I love Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is great. He's one of the most legendary actors of our time. In Sonic 1 and 2, I was somewhat enjoyed him. Mostly in those movies I like gravitate towards like, oh, Sonic 1, I really enjoyed Sonic in Sonic 1. Sonic 2, I really enjoyed Knuckles. I'm like, oh yeah, Robotnik's fun, he's cool. He's very over the top, which is very Jim Carrey. But, that's why I love him. Jim Carrey, this is the best Jim Carrey Sonic performance. I absolutely loved it. Every time he had a scene, I laughed. I love him in this movie. I'm like, I really want him to come back, which I don't think Jim Carrey is coming back with this franchise. He might come cameo maybe sometimes, but I think Robotnik is bye-bye. But he is so great. There's a whole sequence where he's just a dance sequence with Jim Carrey. This dance sequence, most times they have dance sequences in movies, TV shows. Like I go back to She-Hulk, I go kind of back to Sonic 2 with the little dance sequence too. Like it can be cringy. It was cringy, but it was hilarious. Like you can be cringy, but you can have something be really cringy. But if it's funny, it can really get the audience to be like, oh, that was awesome, that was hilarious. He is so funny. I was just laughing the entire time, and the audience was laughing with him too. He has a really good. I really like this story arc. This movie. He had a really emotional story arc. And I just love Jim Carrey. I love him so much. I love him as Dr. Robotnik. When I think of Dr. Robotnik now, Eggman, I think Jim Carrey. He finally completes his Eggman look arc. How he actually looks like so close to Eggman in the original game, and I thought he was excellent. Him and Keanu, I think, make this film. They are so great in this movie. Now, let's move on to my final thoughts on the movie. I think a lot of the movie I thought was okay until that third act. That third act really showed me like, damn, this movie's great. The third act, because there's a lot of spoilers in the third act, so I can't really talk about it right now. Let me just say, if you are a fan of Sonic Adventure 2, you're going to go crazy for this ending. You're going to go crazy for this sequence. It's if you know what I mean, if you've seen it, you know what I mean. Oh, it is such a great fight sequence. It's so great. There's so many Shadow and Sonic, it was such a great fight scene, guys. Oh, what I loved about it is, first off, it's very anime. I love the anime inspirations for this movie. Look at that poster back there. I mean, right here. Look at that poster. The Japanese writing. Of course, it takes place in Japan, and there's so many anime moments in here. If you go to the trailer, look at the Akira slide. And there's a lot of Dragon Ball inspiration. I feel like is in here as well, which is really cool. And I love the fact that Jeff Fowler, the director, he did the right thing. He's honoring the video game people love, but also trying to add some stuff he wants to add in there. I'm looking at stuff like the Voltron movie, where the director's like, oh, we want to tell a new generation of the pilots. I'm like, this is how you do a video game movie. You take from the source material, but you don't copy and paste it. You take things that work, but then you also got to put things that work in your movie. Jeff Fowler, I don't know how this man does it. How after each Sonic movie, he makes a better one. This is my favorite of the trilogy. I love it. Think about that. Here's a little known fact, guys. This is the second video game trilogy series we've ever gotten. The only other one is Resident Evil, which, not so great. But they're going to keep pumping these out, guys. And I'm all for it. I'm in my seat every time, especially with that end credit scene, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. We're going to talk about the end credit scene tomorrow. Such a great freaking end credit scene. Oh my god. My audience went crazy for that mid-credits and end credits scene. It's like, oh my god, crazy. But overall, I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. Yes, an 8 out of 10. I'm not giving it the full points because there were parts in the film where I thought the CGI was a bit off. And, it kind of looked weird a little bit. But then there was also parts, where the jokes didn't always land for me. But, I get it. It's a kid's movie. It's not geared towards me. But I am a big Sonic fan. I'm a big Shadow fan in general. And as a Shadow fan, I am fully satisfied with this film. But what did you guys think when you saw Sonic 3? Did you enjoy it? Like it? Make sure you comment, subscribe, do all that. And with all that out of the way, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.